Let's now talk about a way to use hashtags with kind of a spam protection in it. Because if you use too many hashtags, which means about 25 to 30, Instagram is very likely to consider this hashtag bundle, so this stacked hashtag combination, as spam. That's why there is a way to make a protection for that. And this you see here, which is a text. The only disadvantage here is that this text, of course, is pretty long and people won't read it. So it's only to protect yourself from being labeled as spam from Instagram. But of course, on the other hand, your reach also won't thank you to 100% for that, because the text is very long, as you can see on the right side, which is here, starting here. Text is pretty long, but people won't read it. And Instagram doesn't like long descriptions without people staying longer on that post. So if you have a post with no description and people on average are looking 10 seconds on it, and then you have another post with a long description, so like this, and people still are only using 10 seconds or a bit less even to take a look at that, then the description is not working, of course, and then the reach is also not very good. So let's take a look at this spam protection anyway. I have that here translated in English, and it starts with what follows now is an unimportant text where I have included the usual hashtags. You can just ignore it. I heard that Instagram prefers hashtags in this format because it's less spammy. Let's try. And then I have a text with some hashtags in it. A stock is an ownership, interest, blah, blah, blah. So I have different hashtags here. So here, for example, here, I have an hashtag, and here, and here. So you see different hashtags which I used, and that in this text. But people won't read it because the text is nonsense. So you have two different options to really have a good hashtag game. Option number 1, only use 5 to 6 very good hashtags, like discussed in the last video. That's idea number 1. At the beginning, you don't want to do it, of course, because you haven't tried a lot of things out. That's why it makes sense to use the strategy from the last video with about 15 hashtags. But if you are already growing, you can play a bit with hashtags, because if you are growing, you anyway get a lot of reach from the explore page and a lot of impressions, and then hashtags are not that important anymore, but still you should use them. The other way is use hashtags in a sentence or text that makes sense and is interesting for people. So you can write a text like this, which is of course much more effort than just writing 5 to 6 keywords, but it can have an improvement on your reach because the text is interesting, so people will read it, and you still have a lot of hashtags in it without Instagram consider it as spam. So this would be the perfect solution. But I would stick to this. So number 1, if these 5 to 6 hashtags don't bring you any impressions from hashtags here would be the best case, then you know, okay, the hashtags are working, which at that time wasn't the case actually. No, so most of it from explore page but none from hashtags. If this is the case for you, I would try exactly that. Use hashtags in a sentence or in a text and make sure that this text is really interesting for your target group. Then people will read it and also read the keywords. Okay, this was everything about keywords and hashtags, at least the most important parts about it. It's not the only way to gain reach. That's why I will talk about engagement in general a bit later at the end of the course. But these two ways to use hashtags are good starting strategies that you should consider.